I'm Jan English-Lueck. I'm a professor of anthropology at San Jose State University, and I am the lead researcher on the ethnography team for the Mosaic project. My role as the lead investigator in the ethnography portion of the Mosaic project is to manage all the ethnographers and photographers that develop the story maps portion of the Mosaic project, which will tell stories of individual neighborhoods and really put a human face on the geographic information as we document the amazing efforts of cultural artists throughout the Bay Area. In addition, I'm also leading the team to host the full oral histories that we conduct into an archive at the Martin Luther King ScholarWorks program.
My name is Graham Wade. I'm a graduate student in applied anthropology at San Jose State University. My role is doing user experience research for the Mosaic Atlas, which involves doing interviews with people into how the map might be used and who it might be used for. However, I'm also working with the ethnography team on the story maps and the oral histories that we're doing.
My name is Alexandra Garcia, and I am a graduate student in the Applied Anthropology program at San Jose State University. My role as a graduate researcher includes developing story maps of neighborhoods around the Bay Area, as well as data collections of oral histories with organizations, cultural bearers, and artists. So I am working with NUMU, so New Museum of Los Gatos, with creating an exhibition that highlights the Muwekma Ohlone tribes and the revitalization of their traditions.
Hello, my name is Caroline Ammon. I'm a graduate student of applied anthropology at San Jose State University. My role on the project is that of a content creator. I will be generating story maps to put human faces on the atlas that we're creating. In order to do that, I'm conducting oral histories, primarily with Muslim identities across the Bay Area. This is a very underrepresented population, simply because Islamophobia has resulted in issues of representation and concerns around bringing visibility to the work that they're doing and where they create community.
My name is Kylie Stokes. I am a graduate research assistant in applied anthropology and an ethnographic researcher on the Mosaic Atlas project. My focus in this project is looking at cultural mural artists throughout the Bay Area that represent different diverse communities and are interested in visual storytelling of these experiences that are collective and shared amongst those communities.
I'm Patrick Pationos. I'm a graduate student at San Jose State University in the Applied Anthropology program. I'm on the ethnography team on the Mosaic project as a photographer, collecting photographs of these spaces we're studying and really adding that visual aspect to the project as we're looking at these neighborhoods, not only to capture what is there through photography, but communicate the feelings people who live there and their own visions of the space, and even to go further and try to find how these spaces might inspire art and creativity.
Hi, my name is Mitchell Tran, and I'm an undergraduate student at SJSU studying anthropology. My role for this project as an undergraduate researcher is to help assist and document the project they're working on, and also being a photographer for the Japantown story maps.
So my name is Jonathan Santaella. I'm actually a graduate student from San Jose State. Just volunteering for this project with Mosaic America, the ethnography team in San Jose State Anthropology Department. My role is to find and identify cultural hubs or locations in order for us to later interview. Doing that will help us to put a face into people's culture.
Mosaic America has objectives of its own, which is that it provides this important platform for supporting artists and bringing them together across cultures. In the project, we have co-evolved to learn their objectives and to learn that they have some very pragmatic needs to find funders and to work with specific communities. And even the way we approach how we look at the data is quite different. Mosaic America is looking at it culture by culture, and they're really trying to think about building a database culture by culture. Geographers look at things place by place, and they have to look at specific counties, specific towns, specific neighborhoods, and specific places within those neighborhoods, and document those places. And of course, being anthropologists, we're looking at it as communities of people. And we're looking for those community interactions and for people who are mobilizing community organizations and community advocacy. And so we're looking at it person by person. One of the most exciting challenges that we've had is to try and make those three different approaches to the data work together. That we are looking at culture by culture, place by place, person by person, and building databases and communication flows that allows us to learn from each other.
One of the things I most enjoyed about working with other disciplines is learning about how they think about what we're doing and how they do that and vice versa. So it was great working with the geography team and just learning how they thought about the space of this map and how things can be presented on that. And similar with Mosaic. The Mosaic, it was great working with them and the artists that they brought into the project. And just learning about the viewpoints of artists on this project about artists.
We have divided our ethnographic interviews, our oral histories, into different kinds of stakeholders. Some are cultural hubs that bring people together, support and foster cultural arts. Some are the artists themselves who are creating vastly different kinds of arts, everything from fiber arts, culinary arts, music, performing arts, murals, a whole array of different kinds of arts. And others yet are cultural advocates. And so we have different kinds of interviews for those different kinds of stakeholders.
Some of the questions that we've asked artists in the first half of the interview is what cultures they identify with and how does their culture speak to their specific identities and how it affects their work and how their specific art form expresses their own cultural identity. We asked them what role they play in promoting this type of art form, whether an artist or a performer or an educator to the community, and to tell us about their creative endeavors. We also asked them what influences does their own culture have on what they do, and if they could tell us specific examples of when culture has shaped the way that they do their art, whether it be their traditions, their celebrations, such as Japantown. We interviewed a dancer who is a head choreographer for the Obon Festival, which is a big celebration that happens in Japantown that brings the whole community together. In the final part of the interviews, we ask what they want their art form to be taken away from the broader audience, what the next generation of people take away from either their organization's work or themselves as an educator, what they want other people to know.
We're very interested in how they identify culturally, what cultures they identify with. And often that is multiple cultural identities in this very globalized world. We're very interested in the significance of place and how the location of their organizations play a role in who they communicate with and how they interact, how they cultivate community, any challenges that they may face because of the location. And one that comes up especially among artists is it's not easy to be an artist in such an expensive area.
One of the ways that we've tried to meet the geographers where they live in places is to take tours of the neighborhood as ethnographers, to use a longstanding ethnographic tool of participant observation and going around those communities and walking around and meeting people and seeing what the place is like and trying to understand the feel of a place and the diversity of a place by experiencing that.
I think for me, doing research on a place, I was able to build my own perspective and experience on, especially, for example, Japantown. We were able to get firsthand experiences, accounts, and then feelings and emotions, as well as their own stories on the specific places that we looked at while we did this walking tour. And it gave us an opportunity to tell their stories and align my own experience with their experience, get background information on that particular place and feeling that that person had and that relationship that person has to the space.
For me, that's a really cool part of like going through these different spaces, having the interviews backing up that experience and it changing my own experience of where we're going.
In addition to conducting interviews, one of the things we do in our team is we read all the interviews that are done by everyone. And so we get to see a much broader perspective than just the people that we interview.
Something that I've come up against in working on this project is the definition of art, because arts, especially cultural arts, is such a broad category. And understanding what mediums to explore and what qualifies as art. And I know my approach has been to make that as broad and inclusive as it possibly can be, to include culinary arts, to include textile arts, to include heritage-based art practices and experiences, rituals, martial arts, just opening up that definition of what is art and what does it mean to be an artist. Because ultimately, whatever medium you're working in, what brings meaning to the art that you're producing is your story, or how you're associating it, what you're trying to say through your art. And so ultimately, you're not going to have an inkling of what to look for without the stories and the people behind those art forms and who are producing them.
One of the other values of really having this sort of immersive visual and multimedia anthropology is we also get to hear the actual voices of people as they're being interviewed. And that makes a connection, an empathy that is very powerful, because you're not just seeing a written quotation, you're not just seeing someone else quoting another person, you're actually hearing the voices of the community.
It's Adrian Reiko Iwanaga, the Buddhist celebration of Obon, which is the remembrance of those who have passed on, and it's actually a dance of joy. It comes in July or August. In Japan, everyone does rush home to their homes to clean the grave, to remember their ancestors, to give thanks. And here we have spread it out because of the number of Buddhist temples that we have. But the idea is the same. We dance in joy and appreciation.
Japantown has really been a platform for other Asian American communities to come in and express their art forms, as well as reaching out to the diverse range of communities in the Bay Area. They put together art forms that are distinctively Japanese Americans, such as taiko drumming, and blend that with musical forms from around the world and make it part of this place. That process of making justice through art, of building community through art, really pervades this project. One of the more profound things that happened in the 20th century to the Japantown community was, of course, the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. And as you walk the streets of Japantown, you will see art that brings that process and makes that visible. For many, many decades, that was an invisible part of American history. It didn't show up in history books. It was not part of the public consciousness. And the efforts, the artistic efforts and the cultural efforts in Japantown really brought that to bear, not only to make it clear that this happened, but also to say, let's not let this happen again. And they continually reach out to other communities that are threatened by Islamophobia or other kinds of discrimination, to make it obvious that, no, through our art, we're making it clear we're not going to let this happen again. And that's in this public space and visible and engaging to a broader public.
When visual tools are used to convey an experience, people can feel them and relate to them in a different way. So I think when communities are trying to express interest in social action or experiences of injustice in any level, forms of art are a really strong and powerful way to communicate those experiences with others and connect in a way that evokes emotion that maybe verbal communication might not.
Of course, the story maps only create snapshots from the people we interview. So the Martin Luther King Jr. ScholarWorks program is partnering with the Mosaic Atlas to house the oral histories in their entirety for future generations of researchers who will ask about the vibrant cultural and artistic life of the region in the early 2020s. From the entire ethnography team, we thank you for supporting the Mosaic Atlas.